Welcome back to the Whatnauts review show. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined by Melissa Wilkinson. Melissa, how has your weekend been so far?
Good, busy. Yesterday, I watched The Incredibles for the first time in a while. Incredibles, still incredible.
Good. I know we've talked about The Incredibles before. I know you've seen it, but you just let me go on this emotional roller coaster over the course of your sentence saying, I watched The Incredibles for the first time in a while.
That would be shocking, especially
Right?
since
Yeah.
we've done several years of Shame Timber, where every September we pull out movies that are on our list of shame that we've never seen. It would be
Right, yeah.
truly earth-shattering if I'd only yesterday seen The Incredibles.
Yeah.
So remember the prologue of the movie where little Syndrome, little buddy, this kid is like, Mr. Incredible, I'm your biggest fan. I'm going to be your new sidekick, Incrediboy. And he's like, no, go away. And then the bulk of the movie takes place 15 years later when he comes back and he has the superhero syndrome. And for the first time ever, I did the math. And I'm like, Syndrome is 28 years old at most.
Yep.
I am not only older than Syndrome, I have been older than Syndrome like the entire run of the podcast. And I never framed it that way. And for some reason, this is really boggling me.
It's weird to think about stuff like that. Like when I was younger watching sports or something and hearing that, like, you know, Kobe Bryant joined the NBA when he was 18, but like to me he still looks like an adult. Like obviously he looked younger than a lot of the people up there, but like he was still like, wow, that's a grown man. And then I get to be that age, and he's still like, when I looked back at those times, was like, well, he still seems older than me, right? And then like you get to be like the same age as like the average player in sports, and you're like, wow, they're all adults. And then you get older than them, and you're just like, no.
It's very funny, your sense of time. You and I are both in a F1, and, you know, Kimi Antonelli is literally half of our age.
Yeah.
And then you look at Fernando Alonso and you want to call him old man, and then you remember Fernando Alonso is only like
his age,
8.
yeah.
Right? He's only like 8 years older.
Yeah. Oh,
We easily,
man.
if we all grew up in the same neighborhood, would have played kickball with Fernando Alonso. That's how narrow our age margin is.
He would have been the older kid that we all wanted on our team because he was older and he could kick farther.
Right. If this is recess, he's only King Bob. He's not even one of the teachers.
Oh, man. Good stuff. If you guys did not know, here on the review show, we cover all sorts of genres and mediums. This week on the podcast, we are covering some comic books from the Valiant universe. We have not done something published by Valiant in a while. To be honest, I don't really know what they're up to right now, or if they're putting much stuff out right now. Have not really kept track of them in recent years. But we are here to discuss the first 3 volumes of Faith. This is a character who I just learned today was actually created back in 1992.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So real quick sort of history lesson on Valiant Comics. They had a big run in the 90s that they tried to get their stuff started. They had their whole universe, a bunch of the same characters and teams as their more modern iteration, but they ended up going bankrupt and kind of shut down operations for a long time. And then like 2010s, they got started back up. I think like around 2012, I think was when they got started back up. And for a number of years, they were putting out some comics. And then, kind of like I said, I've kind of lost track of them in the past maybe almost a decade, maybe around 2017, 2018 is kind of the last time I really remember hearing about them. But that was also
Again,
when they announced, like, hey, we're making a movie universe just like Marvel. And then they made Bloodshot, and that was it.
right, which just got swallowed by the pandemic, and I don't
Yeah,
personally know of anybody who saw Bloodshot.
I still haven't. So,
Yeah, not even us.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I did not know Faith was an active character in the older days of Valiant. I was under the impression that she was a newer character for this new iteration, or the more modern iteration of Valiant. So that was news to me. I thought that was neat. But yeah, Faith, volumes 1 through 3. This character, she had her first appearance in the modern iteration in the book Harbinger, which is kind of their like X-Men book. The Psiots in the Valiant universe are basically they're mutants, but they have to be psychically activated,
Mm.
much more akin to the humans, where they have to undergo a process to get their
Okay,
powers. But
Terrigen
it's
Mists.
right, but for the Psiots, it's like experiments and trauma and stuff like that.
Mm.
Or I think you have to have another Psiot like activate your powers or something like that. So she joined a team called the Renegades, who was a group of Psiots who escaped the Harbinger Foundation. Uh,
Okay, that was my question. If the group is called the Renegades, then what is Harbinger? What is
yes,
that word?
yeah.
Okay.
Harbinger was run by Toyo Harada, I believe was his name. I think he was
Hmm.
mentioned a couple times in this. He's like a mix of Tony Stark and Professor X and Magneto, kind of all rolled into one. Um, so yeah, but they escaped, and they started their own team. They had a quick adventure or two. They helped save the world, and then the 3 volumes we read today was now Faith is out on her own. She's trying to, do her secret identity thing and just live life.
Hmm.
So, Melissa, let me ask you that. We've
Yes.
read a couple Valiant comics over the years here on the review show. Not much. What did you know of Faith, of this book, if anything?
Uh, just that she's a big gal and I'm a big gal, and that was it. And that was all I needed to want to read this book.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That I think is kind of the splash that she made when I first
Hmm.
saw her. Of just like, hey, you don't see superheroes that really look like this very often,
No.
or if you do, they're like third or fourth tier support character, right?
Right. Yes.
Um,
Yes. They're part of the team, but they're not the one flying and punching in the big splash page.
Right. Yeah. So that I think was unfortunate to say, a new novel idea of like, hey, let's get some body shape diversity in
Yeah.
superhero comics, right? And I think that's a good thing. I think we should see more of that.
Hmm.
We still don't see much more of that. But that is part of what made her comics so noteworthy when they got started here. So yeah, I think I had checked out. So I had read her stuff from Harbinger and Renegades. I think I had read her first volume, the first like original 4-issue mini series. I think volumes 2 and 3 were new to me. I don't remember them of like I've read this before, but I had read that first one. So good mix of stuff for me of old and new. Of like, oh yeah, I remember
Good.
that. I remember that. Oh, this is new.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
And
So
the three Valiant titles we've read before were Quantum and Woody, Live Wire, and the death-defying Dr. Mirage. And you kept telling me that these were all in the same universe, but I never actually saw evidence of that. This is the first time that I have some sense of the larger universe. Livewire appears very briefly in this. They
Right, yeah.
mention Dr. Mirage. I remember the word Psyot. I remember Harada just very loosely. So I'm happy we did finally get to a fourth Valiant title that does kind of lock things in.
Yeah.
We do have a better sense of the universe now, finally.
Yeah, indeed. Um, yeah, I think with these comics, I came away with a mixed bag of
Mm,
things. There was some
mm.
stuff that personally I just did not take to, but then I think the third volume for me especially, minus the Hillary Clinton issue, which I just think those things are weird. But I
Right.
liked that third volume a lot. I thought it's like, okay, now we're cooking. Like here we go. We're starting to get someplace with that, which I think the first two volumes were like the first one almost felt like not enough of a like you should start here. Um,
Yeah.
it did feel like an ending coda to everything that happened
Yes.
in Harbinger and Renegades. Whereas volume two of this did start to be like, okay, let's actually kind of recap her origin story and what happened here. So that would be a better jumping on point. And so like that is a little bit rocky, but I had a good time just in the nostalgia of the time period, right? It's very like 2014, 2015
Yes.
Tumblr era. Um,
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
So specifically.
which does not necessarily appeal to me, but I had a good time though.
Yes.
Is the thing. Like it's a fun book. So
Mm.
yeah, what did you think? Now that we've
Faith
read
is a
these,
Faith is a very charming character. She is remarkable not just in terms of the body size diversity, but she's very upbeat, she's very positive.
Mhm.
There's no angst here. I enjoyed her spirit very much. I liked some of she's based in Los Angeles,
Yeah,
and she works for a BuzzFeed style pop culture news blog. Maybe a little bit of BuzzFeed, a little bit of TMZ, kind of a
yeah,
2010s internet mush of a variety of different things. They do some interesting stuff with that setting. I wish they pushed it a little harder, and maybe if we would have kept reading, they would have. Um, and there's some fun. Faith herself is a big pop culture nerd,
yeah,
truly, which at some points is charming and at other points feels a little patronizing. Like, I get it. She's like me. Yeah, no,
yes,
I know that's a Firefly reference. Yes, I get it. It's like just a series of Easter eggs, and sometimes the Easter eggs are very fun, and sometimes it's like, okay, I get it. I what else do you have?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's kind of exactly how I felt with that
Mm,
too. Um, yeah, but I also like some of the things that it's trying, like some of the themes that it's trying to
hmm.
instill about finding your purpose and or where you belong. um
Hmm.
I liked a lot of that stuff, and not even talking about that in terms of like, do I belong on a superhero team, do I belong here, or but like, do I belong at a comic convention, and just the idea that like fandom or stuff like that, no
Yeah.
matter kind of what you're into or how into it you all are, like you can have a good time, you belong here, like yeah.
Yes.
um and
Which mostly
I
comes
like
out
that stuff.
in a specific, I think it's a 2-issue story where she takes a friend to a Comic-Con, and she's a seasoned pro at this, but it's her friend's first time. And the sort of
Good old
framing
Archer.
device, you get these word bubbles that pop up that are Faith writing a blog post for the website she works for. This sort of extra device where in this story she is going to a con and writing a story for the blog about, so it's your first Comic-Con. These are the tips. That's a terrific set of issues. They feel very grounded. I related to a lot of that. There's good, practical, smart advice in there.
Mm-hmm.
The pop culture references come down to a series of little Easter eggs and points, and yes, I know what that is. And the sense of when I was a kid, I read superhero comic books. They inspired me. I want to be a hero like that, which I like, but I do wish there was more shades of fandom and more fandom and media influenced situations in there. We can get into it later.
Sure. Yeah. We kind of did a disparate plot synopsis, but do you kind of want to go over that once more and mush it all together?
Faith worked with the Harbingers. She was part of a team. She was dating a guy named Torque.
Yep.
The biggest guy you've ever seen. His name is Torque, and now he has a reality show called Something to Torque About, which is very funny.
Yeah.
She's recently been through a breakup and lost a friend from her superhero team who had a sacrificial death. She's ready for a fresh start. She goes to LA. What's weird is that her superhero name is Zephyr. Her name is Faith. Everybody knows that's her name. Everybody knows her civilian identity. So when she moves to Los Angeles, she has to have a second secret civilian identity.
Right.
She's like, I'm Zephyr. My name is Faith. But secretly, I have to tell you my name is Summer so that you don't know I'm Faith/Zephyr. Which she does kind of start to move away from after a while. And she's she wants to step out on her own, establish herself as an individual, because I think as soon as her powers awakened, she was swept up in this team, and she's never really been a standalone hero before. She wants to have that exercise, but she still has friends she's close with. She still wants to nurture some relationships or, amend bad ones, make up with people. And there's some alien threat that shows up that did not make a lot of sense to me as somebody who's missing larger Valiant universe context.
Yep.
Then there are some fun standalone adventures that feel wholly unique to Faith and her setting.
Yeah, indeed. Fun fact about Torque, that's not actually what he looks like, that big guy.
Oh.
He's also a Psyot, but I think he is. He at least has the powers to project a psychic version of himself.
Oh.
So he's a lot smaller and skinnier. He's a
beginning Steve Rogers.
He's insecure, about the way he looks, and
wow.
he thinks that
okay.
no one will like him or stuff like that. So he projects this ultra masculine macho
That's
man.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that is Faith. I ended up having a good time with these. Definitely a big trip down memory lane. I think there was another volume or two after what we read, or I think there's one more volume, and then I saw something about a series called Faith and the Future Force, which I don't really know anything about, so there might be another volume or two with that. But yeah, I think we were at a good chunk here to sink our teeth into with Faith here. But with that, let's take a quick break for housekeeping, and we'll dive into some spoilers when we get back. So we will be right back. Thank you so much for checking out this podcast. We hope you're enjoying it. If you didn't know, we make multiple different shows here at the Whatnauts, and a lot of hard work goes into making them, so we would love it if you check them all out. But none of this is possible without your support. Head over to patreon.com/thewhatnauts, and you can get access to over 40 hours of exclusive content, including our Patreon first podcast, The Pilots Club, when you sign up at our $3 tier. Of course, there is a free version version of the Pilots Club available, but episodes are exclusive to our Patreon for 2 years before they hit the free feeds. If you're interested in buying merch, we have shirts, hoodies, mugs, and more for sale over at the whatnauts.com/store. Another great way to help us out is by subscribing and leaving a nice rating and review on your podcasting app of choice. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel for video versions of the show, trailer reactions, and live streams. And lastly, you can always find out more information about the shows we make on our website, thewhatnauts.com. All right, we are back. A big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We love you a lot. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Speaking of the Pilots Club, let's see. Let me pull my notes back up here so I have everything. We just released our episode on the mystery files of Shelby Woo. But we will, in the near future here, be recording an episode on Murder, She Wrote. A pop culture reference that I knew basically by the title. That was it. Didn't know a thing about the show, but I'm excited to check out the pilot episode of Murder, She Wrote in the near future here. That'll be out this next month. For the free version of the Pilots Club, we released an episode on Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, and we actually released our episode for this next month early because life works in mysterious ways. The actor George Wendt recently passed away. He played Norm on Cheers, and that happened to be the next episode we were planning on putting out. So we said, hey, cheers to George Wendt, and we put that episode out early. So you guys can go check that out. Let's see, right here on the review show, we kind of kicked off our summer by watching the X-Files movie. My first time checking it out. I've only ever really caught bits and pieces of the X-Files here and there. Melissa, you are the big X-Files fan.
Yes.
Between us, but we had a good time discussing that one. It's an interesting movie. Over on the Captain's Log, Melissa, you had a whole presentation with pictures on the House on the Rock. You recently took a trip up there to go check it out. All I will say for now is it looks like one of those I Spy books from back when we were a kid. Just extravagant detail. There's a giant whale creature, and there's carpet everywhere. In places it shouldn't be.
This place feels very 1970s. It's from all times, but if it's from any time, it's 1970s.
Yes. Yeah.
Lots of brown carpet.
It's an interesting one for sure. We got up to some other stuff on that one too, but go check it out just for the pictures and presentation that Melissa put together. It was good fun stuff. And then we also have a spoiler cast on the Thunderbolts up for you guys to check out if you still have yet to check that one out. And shortly here we will be recording one on the latest Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. I think, Melissa, you're going to see it a second time this afternoon, right?
Yes. Have you already seen it?
I have, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Went to go on
we'll
Friday
later.
night. Indeed. So yeah, that's it for that side of housekeeping. Just a quick note that I have been doing a bunch of kind of like spring cleaning, so to speak. Our YouTube page is now majorly cleaned up. If you are listening to our podcast on YouTube Music, you can now easily switch between the audio and video version. Our Patreon, now, if you are a Patreon supporter, you have access to RSS feeds for each of our shows individually. So if you are a Patreon supporter and you like the review show, there is a special RSS feed you can get access to for the review show. And when we put episodes up early for patrons, they will go on to that feed before it hits the regular public feed. So good stuff with that. Let's see. I think that's kind of about it that I want to mention for housekeeping. So let's get back to some comics. Let's get into some spoilers for Faith. Okay. Melissa, where do you want to start with it? Looks like you're up to something on that end.
Okay.
So I will
No,
give
hold
you
on. Okay,
another
now I'm done.
minute.
No, I have just been I'm pulling together our recommendations for the end of the episode. I was crawling through
Okay.
our back catalogs to pull specific episode numbers. Now I am done. I was pleasantly surprised that so just looking at Faith, the notable thing about her is a plus size gal. That's typically not what you see in a superhero.
Sure.
That is nowhere in the actual text of the story. It is never, well, it's very, very briefly and fleetingly ever reflecting on her size. There in the two-parter, like I said, I think it's 2, maybe 3 issues, where she goes to a Comic-Con. There's some weird piece of technology or magic that generates a second Faith. Not like an evil Faith. It's just like 2 of her.
Peter Parker clones Saga once again.
Right. I say right, like I know anything about it. You just keep telling me about all the Spider-Man
Miles
clones.
Warren and the Jackal, and that one time where Peter Parker had to dump his clone in the fire, and then the whole clone saga got started because everyone wasn't sure if the clone actually died. Maybe it was the original that died, and Peter Parker has been the clone the whole time.
Faith and clone Faith, and there's a mix-up, there's a tussle, and they're not sure. They have exactly the same memories, and they're not sure which one of them is which. So the 2 of them like each other because they're the same person.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, one of us is fake and will disappear. Know if it's me or not. Which is such a strange thing to do with a little clone issue like that. For the brief time they're together, the 2 Faiths love each other, admire each other, and are excited to have another one of themselves to be best friends with. Yeah. And in that, there is very briefly, in the fantasy sequence of things 2 Faiths could do together, they go shopping, and one of them's like, oh, the clothes are too small. And the other one's like, check out this plus-size fashion website. And they're like, yeah, clothes that fit us.
Yeah,
and that's
awesome. Yeah. I think the only person that ever mentions her size or weight is herself, and it's not a like hatred of it. Right, but it's also mentioned in a way that it's not like outspokenly like, and here's the statement on this comics body positive. It just is, right?
Right, which I appreciated. The fandom stuff, see, she's a fangirl just like you. That got a little patronizing, and I'm happy that they didn't feel the need to hit the nail on the head with some other little fat girl going up to Faith like, I see myself in you.
Right,
It's unspoken. It's very clear without needing to be put into text. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I think if the like I don't want to say tone down the pop culture references in attempt to like, and let's give her less personality or less character. Like, no. I don't want that. I want her to be herself, and I think Faith very much is herself by all of this, right? But I think even both knowing people who are like that and into Doctor Who and oh god, what's the one on the CW that everyone liked on
Supernatural?
Tumblr? Supernatural, thank you. Yeah, the people who are into that, as well as myself, who's into comics and Gundam and you know stuff like that. I feel like I'm also able to hold very normal conversations without making a pop culture reference every other sentence, right? So yeah, it does get a little grating, but I do wish it was almost more like how they treated her size and weight, right? where it's like, yes, we understand that she is a pop culture fan. You don't need to prove that to us
Yes.
every other
Yes.
page.
And it was surface level. And I wish the pop culture stuff would go deeper in terms of characterization and the situations it can create. Like, she seems to think entirely in words quoted from pop culture, like frack, an enemy, and us, the audience, are like, frack, I know, that is the fake swear word from Battlestar Galactica. Aha, I
Frackin'
see.
nailed it.
But right, but then it just keeps happening. And I thought, who's more immersed in pop culture than you and I? But we still use normal human words, and we don't entirely have a vocabulary taken from fictional worlds. That was strange how often it kept happening. And okay, so here's examples of what I would have liked to see with her being a fan. Her being a fan feels like it is exclusively a series of Easter eggs for the audience to point at. And they do something interesting with volume 1 where she loves this show called Night Shifters, which feels to me like how you have described DC's Legends of Tomorrow, a show I've never seen.
Sure, yeah.
But this feels like it is the equivalent of that, of wacky traveling through time and space
It's
journeys.
like Doctor Who, but with a hero team.
Right.
Yeah.
That feels like what this show is. And she's obsessed with the show. She's on fandom boards for it. And a boy goes missing. And when she's investigating the missing boy, she learns he was a fan of that show too. And she's like, I probably talked to him. We were probably on the same forums. I might have known him under a screen name and didn't know that I knew him. And she starts thinking, what if somebody targeted him? What if that was somebody's is that they were infiltrating a fandom board? She's like, that's despicable. What a sacred space to infiltrate. Yeah. And then you learn that there's an enemy, there's like an evil alien race.
The Vine.
They came to Earth. They took the form of humans, and some of them, to influence the populace, became stars, and one of them is the star of this Night Shifters show. And they did, but she's a good one, and all the bad Vine used her as bait to like reach out to this kid and be like, hey, it's a one-on-one fan meet and greet with me, the star of your favorite show. And then they kidnap the kid because the kid's like a budding psyop. That's interesting. But that's the only real conflict regarding the fandom. She meets her favorite actor, Chris Criswell. I did appreciate this, fully living in the early 2000s. Every superhero movie stars a blonde guy named Chris era.
Right, yeah.
He's the Omni Chris, where she's obsessed with Chris Criswell. She gets to meet Chris Criswell, and it turns out that he is a supervillain. He's always wanted to be a supervillain, but he just has superhero looks. So he grew up. He wanted
cast
to be
as the superhero.
He's like, I want to play the bad guy, but they never put me in those roles, so I just became a supervillain, and I'm using my superhero good looks to earn people's trust and then betray them. There's the pop culture stuff. It's either surface level Easter egg references, the very general, shallow surface level, I look up to heroes and therefore I want to be a hero, or a few of these interesting Hollywood set stories like she's encountering. I wanted it to get to her in other ways, like, and not to go so far as to exploring like the toxic side of fandom, not that. I don't think we need a story about that. But let's say you've been looking forward to a movie sequel and you have a certain theory about how the movie sequel is going to go, and then the movie sequel does not go that way. If that happened to Faith, would she have a crisis of confidence? Would she think, I was so convinced that was going to happen in my favorite story?
Faith,
well, how was I wrong?
Yeah. She throws away her costume, never superheroing again.
No, but like, what if something like that makes her start to doubt herself? What if it isn't, oh, I lost a battle and I lost a superhero battle? What if it's, I thought I nailed the story and it didn't go the way I thought it was going. Why did I get that wrong? What else am I getting wrong? Like the way that your interaction with media can affect you
Interesting.
in
Yeah.
other ways that aren't shiny, happy, inspirational, or dark, toxic fandom. There's a whole depth of experiences in between. And I would have liked to have seen stuff like that explored more.
Yeah.
What if she's a disagreement with a friend about something in fandom? Like, I like the main character in this ship. I like the main character in this ship. How could that then be extrapolated and blown up to affect a superhero adventure? Or what if we see like Chris Criswell starting to get close to her, like kind of trying to trick her into becoming his arch enemy? What if there was a villain who wanted to get close to Faith and then betray Faith? And they say these beautiful words to her, and then she's like, wait a minute. That's from a movie. You don't mean what you're saying. This is a trick. You quoted a movie I know.
Yeah.
I
I
wanted to
recognize
see her
that one.
I wanted to see her fandom knowledge and experiences applied in a greater range. Do you understand?
Yeah, and not just like, oh, I recognize this trope,
Right.
or hey, I said that line you like.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes sense. I get what you're saying. I think there is some interesting stuff to pull out of that. Unfortunately, not what we got. But I do want to say one thing about like despite us kind of both feeling like the pop culture references of this got to be a little grating, I almost want to flip that on its head and be like, sometimes I think there needs to be stories for certain identities, where stuff like that, stuff in the way the pop culture
Mhm.
references was used, needs to be put out there front and like in
Mhm.
front and center, and it needs to be like, it needs to have a light shown on it, even if
Mhm.
I don't connect with it.
Yes.
Being a nerd, I was never really bullied in school per se. If I was, it was because of my speech impediment, not because I was
Mhm.
into comics or stuff like that. But it like, there's certain books we've even read here on the show where it's like, I don't connect with what this book is doing because I don't identify as what this
Mhm.
main character identifies
Mhm.
as, right? Whether that's their own gender identity, their own sexuality, who
Mhm.
knows what, right? And so in that sense, I can almost see this book being used as like, hey, it's okay to like be a part of fandom and be proud of it. Like it's
Yeah.
okay to want to make all these references and talk about them, and that can be your personality. That's okay. That's totally
Mhm.
fine, because I think sometimes people will think like, Riverdale, my guilty pleasure, right? And they maybe don't want to share it because they feel like
Yeah.
it's kind of trash TV or something, or it's too nerdy, or it's too like, I don't want my coworkers to know that I'm a weeb and I'm into anime, right? And I
Mhm.
do like weird cosplay stuff. Like, no, who cares? Have fun, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's okay to be into all of that stuff. So I think at the very least, even if I did not take to the pop culture stuff, I'm glad it's in there to
Yes.
be like, hey, this is normal. This is fine.
Yeah, and it is completely normalized in every environment she's in. The nerdy parts of her life never meet up against any conflicts. Like she works for a pop culture news blogging site. All of the friends around her are into the same stuff, or at least they are into something else to the same degree that she is into. Like
Right.
she has a friend
Yeah.
who's a horror movie nerd. And Faith isn't into horror movies, but I like the conversation her friend has about how they can be cathartic, and that's why that is her
Right.
fandom. versus why Faith is particularly into superheroes and sci-fi. I do like that. Yes, that she in no way is Faith a freak in any situation. She is not. Maybe the most is just because she literally has superpowers, but not because of her size, her personality, her interests, anything like that. I do
Hmm.
like that. She is an all-purpose nerd, and I would have liked to have seen slightly more nuance there. I do like when she talks to her friend and admits, I don't really know or like horror movies. But you and I are both we're both big nerds, but each of us have things that like are just not our thing at all. I don't do video games at all. I'm not a big anime person. And
Yeah.
I would have liked her to like meet somebody and have to admit that's a major blind spot. I've no idea what you're talking about. Like I can connect with you on the general principles of fandom, but like no, I've never seen Star Trek. You have some major thing and then have her worry, should I catch up with that? Is this an oversight in my life or is it like, no, I'm just not into it. And that's my boundary line, not because
Yeah.
anything in it offends me, but like, girls only got so much time. I'm sorry, I'm a superhero. I don't have time to also watch House of the Dragon.
Right. Uh, two, two things I want to mention. First, I want to go back and say we never mentioned who is writing the book and who does the art and
Oh,
stuff like this.
thank you.
This is written by Jody Houser with art by various artists, including Perry Perez, Marguerite Savage, and Colleen Doran. Jody Houser, I'm not super familiar with her work. In the sense that I've not read much of her stuff, but I've heard her name constantly in all sorts of stuff. She's written for Marvel, doing things like Star Wars. She's written for Stranger Things. She did Mother Panic over at DC Comics. She's written all sorts of stuff. So it seems like Jody Houser is maybe also into a lot of the same stuff that Faith is into, from like Stranger Things and Doctor Who and Star Wars and stuff like that. So I like that aspect, that like, hey, maybe there's a little bit of Jody going into Faith here of like, I love these spaces, I love fandom, I love going to
Hmm.
cons and stuff like that, and I think that's neat.
Yes.
You reminded me of something. Very little that I know of Star Trek is that there's an episode where they basically have to speak entirely in memes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Thank you
How
for bringing this
cool
up.
would it have been, yeah, if they did have to do an issue or something where they have to speak entirely in like Easter egg stuff. But you're right, they come to this obstacle where she's like, oh shit, like I don't know anything about the thing you just said. Like I don't know, I haven't read Hellboy comics. Like I don't
Right.
know, right?
Hmm. That episode, it's like Picard crashes on a planet with some other alien, and the alien's like, Darmok at Tanagra. And Picard's like, what did you just say? I don't know that language. And he's calling back to his team on the Enterprise, like, can you translate this? Is
Hmm.
this a code? I have no idea what this alien is saying. We can't communicate. We need to work together to get out of here. And eventually they figure out that that is a myth from this culture. When this person says Darmok at Tanagra, it's the equivalent of saying like Odysseus and the ship of thieves. It's like it's like a reference. It's like,
Right, yeah.
the knot, the Gordian knot. It's like a reference point of, we are now encountering the same situation that mythical character encountered, and we're going to have to do what they do. And they speak entirely in archetypes, in references to past things. What I do now is the new iteration of like this ancient story. It's less pop culture and less memey and almost more like Joseph Campbell Heroes Quest stuff,
Hmm.
but it is fascinating. Yes, it would be neat to see an issue that worked like that.
Yeah. But yeah, I think for me, the story really started to pick up in volume 3,
Mm-hmm.
where it she's I think by that third volume it started to feel comfortable in like, okay, now I understand her workplace situation, her home situation, her like I just kind of had a grasp on everything. And it didn't feel like the story was just like, oh, here's a not for I don't mean to say this in a derogatory way, but like, oh, here's a throwaway two issue story before we get on to something else, right? It felt like, okay, it's taking its time with this story arc.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be building stuff up. And yeah, we did not get the conclusion of what was happening in that arc in volume 3. So I guess volume 4 goes on to continue that story, and that reads really really well to me. That it has
Mm-hmm.
the time and space to
Yeah.
build up the characters, the story, the plot, like all of that stuff. I also kind of preferred that art in volume 3. There's something about just that style that
Mm-hmm.
I liked a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, by that time she is starting to get away from her like secret civilian identity, which is kind of an interesting like
Yeah.
swap on it, but it also
I've
just
n-
seems like a hassle.
I've never seen that before, where she was known by the superhero named Zephyr. Her given name is Faith Herbert. Everybody knows that's her given name. When she goes to start fresh, not completely rewipe the slate, but like, I've been part of a team. I want to go work independently for a while. I will develop a actual secret civilian identity.
Right.
Then she seems to only keep it up for the people in her office, and then everybody in her office finds out. I'm like, what other people specifically are you hiding from? Why aren't you just Faith all the time?
But that's the thing, like at work they don't necessarily know who's going to show up to the building. So she kind of has to at the very least like keep that disguise close so that if someone else walks in like, hey, I heard you guys were hiring, like, oh, here's someone who doesn't know yet. But it's also this like, I just want my own space. Like I
Yeah,
want
yeah.
a space where I can just be a regular person, right? And I feel like
Mm.
that identity gives her that. But yeah, it just also kind of feels and almost feels like a hassle to her as well, right? Where it's just like, now my coworkers are like mixing up my names and all of this stuff because I got
Mm.
like 3 or 4 names they have to keep
Mm.
track of. And yeah,
Right. And she even
um,
talks about how everybody who knows her as Zephyr knows her as Faith. And she's like, do I even keep going by Zephyr? Is my superhero name just Faith now?
to be honest, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. I think before I started reading this book, I didn't even know Faith was not her super.
Yeah. I think because I remember her having that secret identity when I read that first volume before, but I don't think it truly clicked with me that like, oh, she has a secret civilian identity, right? It's not that nobody knows that Spider-Man is actually Peter Parker, but it's everyone knows Spider-Man is Peter Parker, but also Peter has a secret identity as
Right.
someone else. And like I don't think that clicked with me, and it did here, and it was just like, huh, interesting twist, but also you just jumping through hoops here. It seems
Yeah.
like, yeah. Um, so
Her the
it's an interesting thing.
her identity she creates, who's named like Summer Smith or something. Summer wears a wig
Hmm.
and glasses, classic. And she has this very dowdy way of dressing. And I don't know if maybe this was
Middle-aged
legitimate fashion.
librarian.
Right. I don't know if there's something about the fashion of the time that I'm forgetting. And like, this looks way dorkier to me now, like 10, 12 years later, in a way maybe it wouldn't have if
I,
I
I
read it
don't
as it was coming out.
I don't think she's trying to be fashionable in
I,
in her Summer Smith
No, but
identity.
this is something I did wonder about. Is her secret identity so dorky because that is what stories have often told her? She's like, Clark Kent is a dork, Peter Parker is a dork.
Mm.
Well, if I have to make a civilian identity, this one has to be a dork too. It can't be cool. Of course not. Which one is cool? Show me that in a comic. Or if it so we only see her like at home where she's in her pajamas.
Mhm.
And I did like how much downtime we spent with her at home, just like hair up in a towel turban after taking a shower, wearing a t-shirt, wearing pajama shorts. That was nice.
Yeah.
She's at home. She's in her superhero costume. She's going to the con where she's wearing like some sort of a cosplay outfit I couldn't quite put my finger on. It looked almost like a steampunk version of herself, but I
Yeah.
didn't know if there
That's
was a reference there I was missing.
that's what I assumed it was too. Just
Okay.
like this steampunk Zephyr.
And then we see her as Summer. And Summer has a very, yeah, like you said, middle-aged librarian way of dressing. And I think about the fantasy sequence that she had when she meets the other Faith about what if I had somebody to go shopping with and I could find clothes that like fit my body and fit my style. And I wondered, is this her? Is this how she wants to look when she's Summer? Which case, go for it. Or is it like, this is what I could find? The clothes for a young plus size woman are the clothes for an adult plus size woman. There aren't generations of this. It's like we're all permanently 58 years old.
Yeah,
Which
the
is
little that I know about women's fashion, which is almost non-existent,
you
is
don't
that
have
it
to.
right, yeah, but like it can be difficult to find clothes that fit for any size,
Mhm.
unless you're super small, right? But then also, if you do find something that fits, is it the right kind of style that you want, right? Maybe not.
Yeah,
Um,
right. As a young plus size gal, I could only shop in like adult women sections up until I was like 13. And then we got Torrid. Torrid, which is a spinoff of Hot Topic. You've surely walked past it in a mall. I doubt you've ever gone in. It is a Hot Topic sister store that was specifically for plus size women. So I'm like,
cool.
finally, a store that's just for me and skews a little bit more youthful. I don't have to wear the same clothes that my teachers wear anymore. But it also skewed very goth as a sister store to Hot Topic. And that was the only store I could shop at. So I was almost like forced into being a goth when I was 13. And now, like 20 years later, that there are a greater variety of options out there, I'm like, oh, I can dress preppy if I want to.
Yeah.
That option just was not available to me when I was younger, so I never thought about it. And it feels like a very silly realization to go through. I'm like, I'd love to look different. I'd love to actually wear more commonplace clothes and not black dress
Right?
after black dress, please.
Yeah, that could certainly be a factor into the way she looks in
But
her secret
and I, I
identity.
and I and I liked again that it was not pointed at or really nailed on too heavily. It is something more subtle. It's something that, depending on your lived experience, you can read into and you can relate to.
Yes. I think also on top of that was also good when she finally meets her coworker's partner,
Yes.
who's into who's into cosplay and basically wants to be like, hey, can I be the one that makes your suits, your outfit, like superhero
Yeah.
outfits? And she's like, I mean, I kind of like the one I have, but sure, like
I
I don't mind you trying to make some new stuff. And I liked that a lot, that it's like,
mm,
oh, we're incorporating the cosplay and the people that make these
yes.
incredible
Yes.
outfits, right? That was neat. But even though she at least yet hadn't really picked a new costume yet, there was never really I think we saw her in like one or two of them, but there was also never really this overemphasis on like, bigger women often tend to have bigger cleavage, so let's
Mm,
focus on that, right? Like
yes.
the suit she has basically covers her entire body, but
Yeah.
that's also not commented on, of like, oh, I want to be more modest, or I want to like she's not necessarily insecure about herself.
No.
Like it's not a topic that comes up, but it's not
Mm,
like yes, I have cleavage.
right,
Right.
right.
Like there is
Yeah, it
one that is a
isn't.
little bit more low cut,
Yeah.
but even that
Oh,
she looks
right.
good, but it's like this really isn't my style.
Mm.
It's fine, you know.
Yeah. I do like Faith's outfit. I love how cosplay friendly it is. It is like
Mhm.
boots, full length pants, like trousers, not like weird lycra leggings, full length trousers, and then this long coat, but not an impractically long coat. I'm like, this is something that any person could build and comfortably wear all day at a con. You might be a little hot, like we said, it does cover her whole body, but
Yeah.
yeah, I really appreciated the thought that went into that. There's so few plus size characters that plus size women can dress up as. If we're going to make one, let's make it a costume anybody could easily wear and not something completely impractical.
Yeah.
And the when her friend is just offering, like, I love designing costumes. I just wanted to be creative. I just had a bunch of ideas. Have you tried switching it up? She's not specifically trying to push her in any particular direction,
Right. Yeah.
but I liked that as the example of as the embodiment of feeling uncertain about how you look. Like maybe because of your size, there are limited options available to you, and you wear what you have, and you're not able to think about what else you could be wearing. So you're like, well, when I go to the store, this is what is in my size. I have to wear this.
Yeah.
And I just don't have the space to think about what else I could wear because that stuff doesn't exist. And
Yeah.
her friend's like, have you tried thinking of something else? It is both the uncertainty about people judging you and the uncertainty about, am I putting myself in a box because there are limited options available to me? Do I need to go out there and make options for myself? Do I need to be thinking bigger than what has
Mm.
been provided to be my whole life? I love the alternate costumes her friend mocks up. I wish there was more about the transition from I make cosplay costumes to now I am making a costume for an actual superhero. And what are the
What are the
needs
materials?
of
What are
the
the needs? Yeah.
right? Again, I watched The Incredibles yesterday. Edna Mode is not making stuff out of just like cotton and polyester. It is
Right.
superhero. It is superpower friendly materials. Where is her friend, the cosplay tailor, getting those? How does that work? I wanted a lot more there. Uh, let's talk about the art a little bit.
Sure.
I like the art fine. I love the art style of all of Faith's fantasy sequences. I
Yes.
love that Faith's fantasy version of herself is still a big girl, just slightly more buxom. She's still the same size, but maybe it's like more boob fat and more butt fat and less belly fat. Like it's just slight tweaks to who she already is.
Yeah.
Which is exactly how I would envision myself. If Dream Me is not a size 6, Dream Me is like maybe one size smaller and a slightly more buxom. That really spoke to me. That felt very
That's awesome.
true. And in her visions, she's wearing a little bit more of a revealing costume, but not like full red Sonya or Vampirella.
Right. Yeah.
And
Or even Power
right,
Girl, where
not
it's like
even
here's a
quite
full
Power
on
Girl.
boob window. Yeah.
Yeah, that felt very relatable to me. Your fantasy version of yourself is only like 20% different than who you actually are. And it's mostly like like she has these big fluffy eyelashes and this big fluffy curly hair. Things that are, I wish I looked like that, but damn, that's so much work. It's less like, oh, I wish I was a completely
Yeah.
different person, and more like, wish I had the time and energy to like curl my hair in the morning and like find a really good mascara and actually use the eyelash curling wand.
Right. Like
I
like
again,
that probably is what she looks like when she really is like, okay, I have time to do
Yes.
my makeup and my
Yes.
hair, and I'm wearing a corset or some kind of like something to
Yes.
shape me up a little
Right.
bit,
I
and like,
really stuffed myself in the Spanx that day. Yeah.
yeah, but God, it's so much effort. She's like,
Right.
I don't want to.
She doesn't fantasize about a different version of herself, just like the best version of herself that she could do. But what if
Yeah,
that was just naturally every day?
that's cool. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful work there. I like that. And the art style's a little different. It's a little flatter, but in a way that feels like a vintage comic. It feels more like that maybe the comics that Faith herself, the character, would have grown up reading.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
like it has a mix of like anime influences in there, some cartoon influences in there. Like
True.
it's an interesting mix of stuff that's
Bigger,
in there.
sparklier eyes. Yeah.
Right, yeah. The colors are still bright and vibrant, but you're right, it does almost have this not haze to it, but there is this like there is a certain look that is like, yeah, it almost looks like a
It's
vintage comic or
right. It's
something
like
like that.
pre-digital coloring. It looks like actual ink. It's like that range of color.
Yeah. I think that's Marguerite Sauvage doing those. I
Mm,
think I could be wrong on that, but I'm not sure. Um, but yeah, I like those a lot because we do get to check in with those kind of visions every now and then, and that's I think something that is fun, right? You have Spider-Man who has the like constant inner monologue, or Batman who also has the like narration and stuff that's
yeah.
going on. And you have like She-Hulk, which is like a breaking the fourth wall, will talk to you, the
Mm,
reader knows
mm.
that is she's in a comic, stuff like that. So sometimes characters have little gimmicks like that, and I like this one that like once an
Yeah.
issue or something we get this like fantasy version of what she thinks is happening or what she wants to happen, and it's just kind of fun.
It reminded me of Lizzie McGuire, how she would have a little
Mm,
cartoon Lizzie McGuire that would pop up and give her advice and like
good
lay out
pull.
what she
Yeah.
was really thinking. I
Yeah.
think Sabrina the Teenage Witch or Clarissa Explains It All had little fantasy sequences like that. It did feel very much like 90s girl entertainment in a way I liked.
Yeah, and that makes I don't know how old Faith is at the top of my head, but like I think for
Yeah.
the time she felt like the age that we were, right?
Yes.
At that time, if not in college, then just out of it, making it on your own, but still super into the nerdy things that you're into, right? And so it seems like she would have grown up on Lizzie McGuire, Clarissa Explains It All, like all
Yeah.
that stuff. Um, so yeah.
In the issues with the like magical black cat, I
Mhm.
love that as soon as Faith sees the magical black cat, you flip the page and
Sailor
there's this
Moon.
two-page spread. There's this two-page spread of her remembering Sailor Moon,
Right, yeah.
which, yes, is exactly what I also think when I see a talking cat. And I love that she didn't say anything about it. They literally showed us instead of telling us, and they just show us these images of her watching the show, loving the show, trying to do her hair like that, getting like a cosplay outfit and a little toy wand.
Yeah.
That was great.
That to me is a much better example of the like
Yes.
how to
Yes.
deal with a pop culture reference or what she's into, what her influences are. Like
Mm,
how is it, because it's an insight into how she's viewing the situation,
yes.
right? It's not like, oh, here's that line you remember from that
Mm,
one show you like that may or may not have to do with what's happening here, right? But it
mm,
fits. But it's
mm.
like, oh, here's a talking cat, like instant, like in the back of my mind, I'm thinking of
Yeah.
Sailor Moon, I'm thinking of Sabrina, right? Like all of that stuff. And how does that inform the actions she's taking? I think would be neat. Um, but yeah, I liked that story arc too, because we get to even see Project Rising Spirit, which is, I think, the thing that Bloodshot works for, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, a much more integrated sense of the like bigger Valiant universe, and it felt like they were building to something. Which, if I read correctly, I think the next volume, Chris Criswell, the Murder Mouse, and what was the other villain that we got in here? There was one other one, I think.
I think Sydney shows up, like Torque's reality show girlfriend, who you find out is also one of the Vine aliens.
Yeah. I think they team up in the next volume that we did not get to read. So I like even that is like, okay, now we're building to something here. Mm-hmm. Here is the establishment of like, and these are your villains. Which yeah, I liked where that was going a lot. It felt wholly its own story and set in the Valiant universe, rather than like, oh, here's a plot that I recognize from Spider-Man, or here's a plot that I recognize from stuff, or even if it is just a detour into a Comic-Con, right? Like, kind of anyone can go to a Comic-Con and stuff like that, which on its own is neat. I'm not trying to disparage that arc, but also this felt like this is a Valiant universe storyline here.
Yeah, so. I loved the stuff at the con. That felt very real. It's all, she never names anything literally. Like, she'll make references to Battlestar Galactica, but in this universe, it's like Spaceship Galactic. It's all of the off-brand names.
Yeah.
And seeing all the off-brand costumes, like it's a Mario, but he has to be orange. Everything's the wrong color. That's always fun. There's somebody who's not really cosplaying as anything specifically. It's just a guy in one of those big inflatable dinosaur costumes. I've seen that. I know that. That feels so true to Comic-Con energy.
Did in the Comic-Con stuff, did you look at the creators in the artist alley stuff?
I'd spent a lot of the time reading this book. Like, I get it. You don't have to patronize me. Yes, I know. That's Firefly. That's Star Wars, whatever. But as soon as they show me Jeff Lemire, I'm like, you've got my number. That's it. Okay, you pulled out the one card that's really going to get on your side. It's Jeff Lemire.
Yeah, it's we've read some stuff on this show by a number of those creators that were on Hire. So yeah, good fun stuff with that. Chip Zdarsky was in there, I think. Mm-hmm. Oh God,
Kelly Sue DeConnick.
Thank you. Yes, that was exactly who I was thinking of. Gail Simone was there. Yeah, like. That stuff is always really fun to see, these like artist interpretations of these other comic creators. That's always a blast. Let me ask you this. What did you think of Archer, her kind of maybe boyfriend?
Archer was sweet. I don't know his whole backstory, but apparently he was part of some sort of a religious cult that he has escaped from. Uh-huh. And he is game to learn about all the stuff Faith likes, but he has no personal relationship with it. He's like, we didn't have TV growing up.
Yeah, completely sheltered from all of that. Like, knows nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that a lot. That was very sweet. I dated a guy who grew up in a very, very small remote town who had like 3 TV channels and a 1-screen movie theater that would get like whatever the biggest movie is. It's like, we've got Star Wars, but we don't have, maybe we're missing like Captain America. We don't have everything.
Yeah. So his knowledge was Disneys like at once, only one.
Right. So he was a nerd, but a nerd very hard for only the few things that got through to him, and everything else he was oblivious to. So I did have a relationship very much like that once. That felt true.
Yeah, the movie theater my parents go to has 2 screens. and so yeah, they're in a similar situation. Yeah, he's from the book Archer and Armstrong, very
Oh, I know
similar
that title.
to Quantum and Woody. It is also kind of like a buddy cop scenario, but where Quantum and Woody is maybe more like absurdist and silly, Archer and Armstrong is like raunchy and gritty. Like it's more violent. It's more like, oh, here's sexy stripper nun assassins and stuff like that. And yeah, he grew up as a part of this religious cult. He was the one that they were training up to be their assassin, to take out this guy that they think is the Antichrist or what have you, and he ends up meeting the guy he's supposed to kill, and they escape together and become best friends. And that guy's name is Armstrong, and he's this like older, like middle-aged drunkard with like a big like Irish accent or something like that. It's like what if Hagrid trimmed up and was a drunk, right? Like not like took care of himself, like, oh wow, Hagrid, you clean up nice, but like didn't have like the big full on bushy beard, just like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
small one.
Yeah.
But he was just like always found passed out in bars, starting bar fights and stuff. And so yeah, they team up and they go on adventures and fight weird stripper nun assassins and stuff like that. So that's what they do. And so then he comes to a Comic-Con and he's like, everyone is a threat here. Like, I don't know what to think. And she's like, no,
Yeah,
it's a costume. It's okay.
She makes him dress up as Legolas because he
Yeah.
is an archer. He doesn't like that he doesn't have real arrows, but he still makes do with his suction cup arrows.
Yeah, it's not that he like does not know pop culture. He does not know how society works. Period.
Yes.
He doesn't understand jobs or like traffic signals or stuff like that. He knows nothing about like modern society. So the fact that he's FaceTiming with Faith is kind of like, whoa, Archer, technology, man. Okay.
Yeah.
You're
Look, you
doing
learned
it.
one thing.
Yeah.
Incredible, Archer.
Exactly. So good stuff. I think they make a cute
Yeah.
couple. They're fun.
And I liked her trying to make peace with Torque, and that he isn't. I like that he wasn't like a complete jerk bad guy. He does have, which he's coming off of being part of the same team book that she was. I imagine he does have his whole own story and arc and journey he's going on. But just as a minor character, you would have expected a much more shallow, caddish ex-boyfriend, and he's got a little bit more to him.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely more to him for sure. They do play up the like, this is what a macho man should be. I should like kind of be rude to women because that's what women like. They like bad boys, right? And that's how he chooses to live his life. But it is a facade. Is the thing there that like really on the inside he is this kind of scared, insecure little guy, which is a very obvious commentary on like toxic masculinity and stuff like that. But you're right, even in the little that they show of him in this, he like, you can see like, I bet if the moment was right, they could have a real honest conversation.
Yes.
And it right, like he's not completely devoid of emotion. He's not really an asshole. He might be as like, this is the way he acts out, kind of thing. But yeah, she tries to at least be like, can we end this on a good note, please? And it still seems kind of shaky by the end of these three volumes here, but they're trying, is what it sounds like. So that's good. It's fun. Good stuff.
I did like that it wasn't I regret what I did. I want to get back with him. Am I in a love triangle? But just, I still care about this person. I want to have a good platonic relationship with them. I
Yeah.
want that better than no relationship. Can we get enough on each other's wavelength again?
Yeah.
I like that. Just the journey towards getting back to being friends with somebody.
Especially if you may or may not be on the same team as at right
Yeah.
superhero team. Like, hey, we like if we do kind of team up for something, which it seemed like there was. I think between volume 2 and 3, maybe there was a volume of renegades that happened or something, because she makes a reference at one point to oh, and I've been like out with the renegade with my team again, but we don't get to see any of that in this book here. So good stuff. Did you have any other things that kind of stuck in your head of like, I don't understand what this is just because of it being of that Valiant universe thing,
I
or
I got enough of it. I think they give you everything you really need
yeah,
to understand like the Vine or Project Rising Star. It's very funny
Rising
when she
Spirit,
comes
yeah.
across this like black van of agents and says, I would know those uniforms anywhere. That's Project Rising Star. And I thought, those are the most generic black uniforms I've ever seen. What are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
I
fu-
think they don't like Valiant tried to do a really good job of like, if you want to only read a certain character or a certain team's story, you can read only that thing and everything will make sense. We won't be like, oh, and now I have to go read this other book to figure out how this works here, right? But it is like, okay, they've introduced me to the Vine. Everything I needed to know about the Vine for this story is in this story. But if I do want to learn more, I can go to like to Exo Manowar and read that
mhm,
book and stuff like that. Or like, who's Livewire? I want to go see who
mhm.
Livewire is. She looked neat. You can do that and it won't interfere or like take you away from the book here, but will add to your when like we've read Live Wire, so when she shows up, it's like, oh hey, it's her. Like we know a little bit
Right.
about her. She's fun.
Finally, recognizable crossover between these titles.
So yeah, good stuff with that.
Yeah. Uh,
Cool. I think that's all I have to say
yeah.
on the book.
Only only final thing to say is that I feel like drawing Faith in her body type felt very well researched.
Mm.
She has, I, I've seen like 1,000 women that look exactly like Faith. She's got such weight and heft to her. Like they did not cheap out on drawing a fat girl. They really put the work into drawing a realistic, well-researched, naturally proportioned fat girl.
Yeah.
She's got fat knees in the way I have fat knees, and I've never seen that drawn before.
There you go. Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Mm.
Yeah, it's fun. Cool. Let's see. Let's get over to bingo. Let me pull this up on screen. This feels like if we had an empty board, I'm sure we could have gotten a lot of stuff. I don't actually
Yeah.
know what I have on here that I will get.
Uh,
Did we get a fake fast food name?
no, we missed that. I would have loved that.
I feel like we got some other like fake names for other stuff, but not specifically fast food. Um,
I have Pop Idol. There is the young actress who was on the show Broadway High School. I liked that storyline.
yeah,
Um, I don't know if we quite have enough there.
I would say so.
We
Like she
uh,
is a pop idol in the thing. I don't remember if like our original intent was like we need to have a celebrity in there, like someone we recognize. But I feel like a character who is a pop idol
okay. Yeah,
fits.
she is sort of like a like a like a Miley Cyrus, a Selena Gomez, that
Yeah,
sort of thing. The person who in real life would have pop music as part of their catalog, even if we don't see
true.
it from this character. She reads as such. Okay.
How do you feel
Uh,
about Ghost? I have Ghost.
oh, there is that ghost storyline. That is interesting. Where she thinks she's being haunted and then she does learn that it is a hologram.
Right. It's not a
I'll
real
take
ghost,
ghost.
but it's
I'll
like,
take ghost.
okay,
I like
okay.
those designs. I
Process.
like those are some good nasty ghost designs.
Yeah.
The Danger Mouse character, I think, is after a magical item. There's magic in that one, right?
Yes.
Can I get occult crimes?
Sure. I'll give you that
Okay,
one. He's
it's
stealing
not
a
quite in
magical artifact. Why not?
right. There's magic crime stuff going around. It's not full True Detective, which is what I put this square on in the spirit of, but
Yeah.
it'll work.
Let's see. Nosy neighbor. She was seen took or broken object. Almost have meeting yourself thanks to time travel, but no time
Almost.
travel in that. Did we get a foe waiting in the shadows to talk when
I
she's
don't think so.
investigating that house and she thinks it's empty? And
I
then
don't
there's
think
the
so.
person behind her. No. Yeah,
We
I don't know
the
if he's like
Comic Con
waiting.
acts the Comic Con acts as the movie backlot with stock characters walking around, but it isn't literally that.
Yeah. Did we get to see her on like the set of that show she likes? Because that would almost
Mm,
be.
no, she like goes to interview in her identity as a
Oh,
blogger. She
that's
goes
right.
to interview actors, but I don't know if we're ever on the set where there's like a Trojan and a cowboy walking around.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's it for me. I got Ghost with an
Oh,
exclamation
close.
mark. Ghost. No flip phones in this one either.
Yeah.
I feel like this would have been a good one for a flashback to a flip phone.
I wish somebody, we talk a lot about the aliens known as the Vine, but I wish somebody watched or recorded a Vine.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's it for me. Do you have any more on your end?
No, let's get to our recommendations.
All right, let's do it. Recommendations, Melissa. For people that enjoyed this, what else might they like?
So, our other episodes about Valiant Universe comics. On episode 62, we read Quantum and Woody. I think for each of these, we only read the first 2 issues. On episode 90, we read The
2 volumes.
Death-Defying
Yeah.
Dr. Mirage. And on episode 145, we read Livewire. Livewire is the one not just because it's the most recent, it's the one I remember the best. I think that story had a lot of good, meaty nuance in it. Where Livewire is a psyot. She is one of these mutant type characters. Her kind have been persecuted because, as you said, you have to like traumatize a psyot to activate their powers,
Something
and
like
then
that.
you
I
can
don't
use
remember
their powers.
exactly. Yeah.
And she has electricity based powers, and to help a bunch of young, imprisoned, traumatized psyots get away from an evil organization, Livewire makes the decision to nuke the power for an entire city. And in the darkness, in the chaos, her friends are able to get away and escape. But that chaos causes all sorts of other deaths, from like people's hospital equipment going down to like car crashes, all of this other stuff that now Livewire has to live with. And she's still not sure if she even made the right choice. She's like, should I have sacrificed my friends, or like found another way? Did I really go too far in trying to protect somebody? Have I caused untold collateral damage to people who had nothing to do with this and did not deserve to be hurt? And there's people who look up to her, and there's people who hate her, not because she is a super powered person, but because they made a choice. She made a choice that people think was a very, very bad, dangerous idea. They think she's dangerous.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on there. That one dug pretty deep in a way I liked.
Cool.
Other great female-led comics we've read here on the show. In chronological order, on episode 48, we read the first 2 volumes of Kelly Sue DeConnick's Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
On episode 74, first 2 volumes of Dan Slott's She-Hulk. On episode 201, we read Thor, Goddess of Thunder, the one where Jane Foster is Thor.
Yeah.
Who's the author on that again?
Jason Aaron.
Thank you. I'm like, I know, but I'm blanking out on it right now.
Yeah.
On episode 214, we read a Starfire solo series from DC Comics.
That'd be a good one. Yeah.
It's a unique story where Starfire, in a similar boat to Faith, she's like, I've been part of a team my whole time being a super powered person on Earth. I need to go off on my own for a little while, just experience independent life. And Starfire, the alien princess, moves to Key West, Florida, and just tries to live a normal life, but she can't because she's a super-powered alien princess and the hottest being on Earth. And everybody is so horny for Starfire, and she's like, I don't know what's happening. And she doesn't understand Earth ways, and there's all these little visual bits in the margins where somebody says a turn of phrase to her, and she's trying to work out what it means.
Yeah.
Where somebody will be like, that's a real screwball idea. And you see the thought bubble where she's like, screw? Ball?
Yeah, like, I don't understand this.
That's a fun one. On 240, we read some Red Sonja.
Mm-hmm.
And on 303, we read a bunch of Zatanna. Paul Dini's Zatanna.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff.
And really pulling one out of the archives here on episode 33, we watched an anime called Watakoi, Love is Hard for Otaku. I'm not much of an anime person, but this one I liked, mostly because it is about adults who have jobs and normal adult problems. And the problems here is that it's a woman who is an otaku. She's like a really big fangirl. Her specific thing is that she writes yaoi manga. She's like, am I ever going to find somebody in my life who understands that this is my passion? And she gets a job at this office, and she's like, the last time I worked in an office, I dated a guy. He didn't understand me at all. I'm going to keep my passions secret for right now. I need a boyfriend. And she gets to the office, and some old, like, school friend of hers works there. Somebody she hasn't seen in years. It's this gamer guy who was, like, the only person in her school who got her. Like, we were friends. We never really had a crush on each other, but we were both nerds. Not about the same thing, but at the same magnitude about different things. And therefore, we could relate to each other. We were on each other's side. So she goes to this office, and she's like, can we date each other? Like, date each other just so that we're out in the world, we're going about, we're doing things. We get practice dating, we get some confidence. We're not actually like, I don't like you like that, but you're a good friend, and I like spending time with you. And it's their interactions with another couple at the office who are both their bosses, who are massive nerds, including like the lady boss of the entire thing is like, oh, I'm a cosplayer. Every weekend I go put on the strappy, sexy outfit and the big foam sword, and I go walk the con halls. And then I come back, and then I manage accounts.
Right, yeah.
This story I liked.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Any other recommendations?
That's all I was able to pull. How about you?
Perfect. Yeah, well, there's obviously plenty of comics that people can go to if they like Faith, if they want to know more about the Valiant universe and stuff like that, especially Psyots. They can go read Harbinger. I think that's a great place to start if you want to know like the modern iteration of Valiant. I think the first 2 books they launched with was Harbinger, and I think Bloodshot came shortly after that. But like I think those 2 books then kind of coalesce into their first like big event book there, so you can read more about Psyots and Project Rising Spirit and stuff like that. If you want to know a little bit more about the Vine, go read Exo Manowar, which is kind of a mix between Iron Man and Thor. in terms of comics. That's an interesting one for sure. Um, Over on the side of DC Comics, I'd say there's go check out. There's some recent comics called Fire and Ice. Welcome to Smallville. And
Hmm.
these are two members of the
Oh,
Justice League International.
yes. I know Ice. I know
We
those names.
saw Ice in oh god, my mind has been so blanked today.
Human
What was
Target.
Human Target? Yes. But this is a book where Fire and Ice move to Smallville to try and establish themselves as the heroes of that town. They know Superman is from there, but he left and he's now in Metropolis. And so who's
Hmm.
protecting Smallville? Like, why don't we just have us, like, smaller time Justice League heroes set up a salon and secret identities
Mm.
and just be the heroes of Smallville? And so it's them, like, trying to adjust to small town life and stuff like that. I think currently there is a sequel to that series happening, some other kind of Fire and Ice series. But I liked that first 6 issue mini series. With that, uh, I would also recommend George Perez's Wonder Woman comics.
Yeah.
A little bit more old school Wonder Woman, but just some incredible stuff. Wonder Woman is certainly a character who tried to establish herself in man's world. In Boston is where a lot of that takes place. She often interacts with a lot of people around town. The supporting cast is like people she has saved and stuff like that. So she really builds up this like community around her, which I think has that same kind of positivity here that Faith has of just like, hey, you belong here in this space. I think that'd be an awesome book to check out as well. I don't know. I mean, we've covered a lot here on the show that Melissa already mentioned. I would go check out some of that stuff.
Uh,
Lots of good things.
I'll I'll shout out as a little fat girl. My top two fat girl icons were Miss Piggy and Lori Beth Denberg from All That.
Yeah,
Just got to give props to what I had when I was a kid. Go watch the Muppet Movie or the Great Muppet Caper and watch some vital information.
good stuff. Good stuff. All right, Melissa, what will we be talking about next episode?
Next episode, we're going to be watching Poker Face. This is a detective show on Peacock. This stars Natasha Lyonne. It is created by Ryan Johnson. We're going to watch season 1, and then season 2 just came out. We found out that I was not aware that it is only the first half of season 2. So we're going to watch the 10 episode season 1 and the 5 episode season 2 part 1. Which I think they did just to get
Yeah,
something out in time for Emmy voting consideration. And the rest of season 2 will come later.
yeah,
I've already seen season 1. You have not seen any of it, Kyle, but I think you're really going to like it. This is
yeah.
an old time episode of the week detective show, a lot like Columbo, is very
Awesome.
much in that style. Where Natasha Lyonne plays Charlie Kale, a woman who always knows when you're lying. There's
She
nothing
knows
actual
your
magical.
tell. She knows your
Right.
poker face.
Yeah, there's nothing actually magical or supernatural happening. It's just a thing she can do. If somebody says something, there's like a bell that goes off in her head, like bullshit. That's a lie.
Yeah.
She knows when you're lying, and she like has to figure out what's going on. Even though she is a degenerate gambler, an alcoholic, she's just like a cocktail waitress in Reno. But this is the one thing she can do. And this is what she uses as she travels around the country solving mysteries. You're going to
Good
have a great
stuff.
time.
Yeah, I have not seen this show, but I literally just finally watched Russian Doll
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I've gotten to see Natasha Leone quite a bit, and I loved her in that. So I'm excited to check this show out. You know me, I love a good crime show, good mystery show. So I'm excited for this one. So basically catching up on all of Poker Face.
Yeah.
Good stuff indeed. That is what we will do for next episode. Melissa, where can the people get in contact with you?
You can email me at yourhostmelissa@gmail.com. Tell me your early 2010s Tumblr memories.
There you go. You guys can stay up to date with me at Yo Kyle Springer. And if you want to follow all the stuff that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at thewhatnauts.com on Blue Sky. So please go like, share, and subscribe. That would help us out a ton. If you're watching this on YouTube, go check out more of our videos over there on that side of the screen. That would also help us out a bunch. We'd appreciate it. But yeah, this has been number 318 of the Whatnauts review show. We will see you all next time.